Here is another example of using the Keynesian cross to analyse a policy and its likely outcomes. In this situation, in order to encourage private investment in commercial agriculture, a developing country embarks on a major programme of rural road improvements. What are the likely effects on income according to the Keynesian Cross Model? Well, as before, we'll assume we start here at an output level of y0, and a major programme of rural road improvement. Again, that's government spending, so that would be an example of fiscal policy, an increase in G. It's going to take us from the original level G0 up to G1, and that will be G0. We can start with E0 here. So G0 is going to boost, which means that, again, forgive me if this is not exactly parallel, it's an unholy combination of physical ruler and electronic blackboard. So that's kind of, obviously, it'll slightly increase the slope. Very technical. It's not supposed to really. There we are. So now that would take us to a situation where expenditure has increased, because of this boost to government spending. So this vertical increase here would increase expenditure, and that, as expenditure has got to be equal to output, we'd have to move to here. So output would increase from y0 to y0. So have an increase in expenditure from E0 up to E1, which would give you an increase in income from y0 up to y1. So the first thing you'd expect is an immediate increase in expenditure and therefore output from the increase in government spending on roads, the fiscal policy. But that is not all. No, that is not all, because the likely effects, well, if this is successful, in order to encourage private investment in commercial agriculture, you've built more roads. If that succeeds, so because there's more rural roads, people are more willing to invest in agriculture, that's going to stimulate investment. So there'll be an increase in I. Now this level of I in the model just depends on the interest rate, which we assume stays the same. But for any fixed level of interest rates, this stays the same until something exogenous, something outside the model changes. And here it has, the government spending has changed. And here it's changed in a way that we expect would affect investment, because we've built a lot more roads, it therefore makes more sense to do business in the countryside, so we'd expect I to go up. So if policy works, we also expect an increase in I from say I0 up to I1. So let's assume that's I0 there, and here that hasn't changed. It's drawn at the same level of I0. So if we allow I0 to change up to I1 as well, that would give us a bit more of a shift, so I'll just increase this. So keep it vaguely parallel. Takes up to here. Let's just be grateful we're no longer on an actual blackboard. Apologies to the Luddites among us. So this can increase up to C plus I1 now, plus G1. And then we could call this E2. So that gives us a further increase in E1 up to E2. So we get a boost to expenditure from the original government expenditure on roads. Then if that's successful, if that does manage to encourage more investment, we get another increase in E due to the increased investment, which means that Y goes up again from Y1 to Y2. So overall, we get an increase in Y from Y0 all the way up to Y1, Y2, sorry. So here. And at each stage again, this would be bigger than the increase both in government spending. The overall increase in Y would be bigger than the increase in G added to the increase in investment because of the multiplier effect. So each time you boost expenditure, and that boosts income, some of the income goes into people's pockets, and C is rising because of these effects. So C is rising endogenously within the model. So overall, because of the multiplier, we get an overall increase in income that would be bigger than the separate increases in G. Just this mess here is G and I. So that's a prediction. Of course, the model can't tell us whether or not the rows would successfully stimulate investment. So it's only the first part that we're sure of within the model. We get a boost just from government spending. Would that itself have a further increasing effect on I? That depends whether the policy works. And of course, another thing you haven't considered is whether investment that goes into the rural areas because of the better roads, is that coming away from investment in the urban areas, in which case this would be cancelled out. But those are beyond the scope of the model. And that's the end of that example.